The single biggest threat to the artificial intelligence boom isn't whether ChatGPT is getting smarter. It's not copyright lawsuits. And it's not even whether a chatbot that still struggles to count the letters in the word strawberry is about to take your job. It's something much more boring. It's electricity. Right now, big tech has pushed all its chips to the center of the table and bet the entire future of the economy on one wager, that the AI future arrives on schedule. In 2024, the 4 major hyperscalers alone spent over $200 billion building out computing infrastructure. In 2025 and 2026, combined tech infrastructure and data center capital expenditures have surged past $300 billion annually, on track toward a $500 billion annual run rate. To put that into perspective, if you spent $1 million every single day starting from the day Jesus was born, through the fall of the Roman Empire, the Middle Ages, the Renaissance, and both World Wars, you still wouldn't match what big tech will spend on infrastructure in just a few years. But here's the question nobody on Wall Street wants you to ask. Where is the physical power coming from to plug all this in? Because while tech valuations are priced for perfection, the power grid underneath America has just slammed into a physical wall. And the craziest part? The bill for this multi-billion-dollar build-out isn't just being paid by Silicon Valley. It's quietly being routed straight onto your monthly electric bill. And by the end of this video, I'm going to prove it to you using the government's own auction filings. Whenever a technological breakthrough shows up, Wall Street loves to repeat the same overused Mark Twain advice. Don't bet on the gold miners, invest in the picks and shovels. The phrase gets tossed around more than a pitch deck in a San Francisco coffee shop. What they mean is, don't try to guess which AI chatbot wins, just buy the infrastructure underneath. The data centers, the chips, the power. Except there's one minor detail Wall Street conveniently forgets to mention. America is running out of picks and shovels. Because you can't just buy land, build a $5 billion data center, plug into the wall, and ask the power company nicely for electricity. To get connected to the electrical grid, every new power plant and major project has to join something called the interconnection queue. Think of the interconnection queue as the DMV, but for electricity. Except instead of measuring the weight in bad attitudes and hours, it's measured in regulatory reviews, environmental permits, and years. According to data from the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, the average wait time for a project to move from an interconnection request to actually being built has stretched from under 2 years in 2008 to over 5 years today, with many projects waiting 7 years or more. And that's just to get permission to connect. Because AI data centers don't consume electricity the way an office building or a suburb does. An office building powers up at 9 o'clock a.m., quiets down at 6 o'clock p.m., and sleeps on weekends. An AI data center runs at maximum draw, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. A single massive hyperscale data center campus can demand anywhere from 500 megawatts to over a gigawatt of steady baseload power. That is roughly the same amount of electricity required to power 750,000 homes. In places like Northern Virginia, the data center capital of the world, data centers already consume over 30% of the entire state's electricity demand. So the obvious solution is what big tech always does: throw a blank check at the problem and build new power plants. Right? Well, we tried that, and money just lost a fight with the laws of physics. To generate massive amounts of reliable, round-the-clock power, you cannot rely solely on weather-dependent renewables without massive battery storage that doesn't yet exist at commercial scale. The primary baseload workhorse of the American grid remains this beast of a machine, the heavy-duty gas turbine. Gas-fired generation accounts for roughly 40% of America's electricity. These turbines are among the most complex pieces of mechanical engineering on Earth. You don't manufacture them in an afternoon. Only 3 major companies in the Western world control the vast majority of the heavy-duty turbine market: GE Vernova, Siemens Energy, and Mitsubishi Power. And if you call GE Vernova today with a briefcase full of cash and ask for a utility-scale gas turbine, their order backlog is already booked out through 2028 and beyond. In 2024 and 2025, global orders for gas turbines significantly outpaced worldwide factory manufacturing capacity. Which means it doesn't matter how many billions Silicon Valley has in the bank, you cannot write a software patch to summon specialized precision-machined single-crystal superalloys out of thin air. And it gets worse. Large power transformers, the massive metal units that step voltage up and down between high-voltage transmission lines and data center, Substations now have average lead times of 3 to 4 years due to severe shortages of specialized electrical steel and manufacturing bottlenecks. High-voltage transmission lines take an average of 6 to 10 years just to navigate local zoning, environmental assessments, and interstate permitting. We are watching an industry moving at the speed of software run headfirst into an electrical supply chain moving at the speed of concrete and regulatory bureaucracy. Tech developers have grown so desperate for bridge power that some have paid tens of millions just to reserve manufacturing slots for turbines. While others are procuring aero-derivative gas turbines, essentially modified jet engines bolted to concrete pads, to run emergency, behind-the-meter generation. When multi-billion-dollar companies are bolting aircraft engines to the dirt because they can't get capacity from the grid, that's not a temporary glitch. That's a structural supply squeeze. Which brings us to the part of the story that explains how this lands on your bank account. To understand this, you need to know about the largest regional transmission organization in the United States, PJM Interconnection. PJM manages the wholesale electrical grid across 13 states from Illinois to New Jersey, including Washington, D.C., serving over 65 million people, roughly 1 in every 5 Americans. If you live anywhere in that region, your lights stay on because of decisions made in their control room. Every year, PJM holds an event that almost nobody in the general public has ever heard of, the Base Residual Auction, or the Capacity Market Auction. Here's how it works in plain English. PJM doesn't just buy electricity by the kilowatt hour. It buys guarantees. It holds an auction where it pays power plant owners a capacity payment just to guarantee that their generators will be ready to spin on the hottest day of July and the coldest freeze of January. It's essentially a multi-billion-dollar reliability insurance policy for the grid. For years, this capacity was relatively cheap because regional electricity demand was nearly flat. In the PJM capacity auction covering the 2024-2025 planning period, the regional benchmark clearing price was $28.92 per megawatt-day, resulting in a total regional capacity bill of about $2.2 billion. Then, an economic perfect storm hit. Rapidly accelerating data center demand collided directly with the retirement of older coal and natural gas plants, tighter Federal Reserve requirements, and slow grid interconnections for new generation. In the very next auction, for the 2025-2026 delivery year, the benchmark price didn't jump 20%. It didn't jump 50%. The price cleared at $269.92 per megawatt day, an 833% price explosion, with multiple localized zones hitting legal tariff price caps. The total regional capacity procurement cost jumped from $2.2 billion to $14.7 billion in a single auction. Same grid, same physical wires, nearly 7 times the cost. So where does that extra $12.5 billion go? Who pays for it? Big tech companies write checks, but electric utilities are regulated monopolies. Under standard utility regulatory frameworks, utilities do not absorb regional capacity market costs out of corporate earnings. State public utility commissions permit utilities to pass these regional, wholesale capacity and transmission expenses straight through to retail ratepayers. Reports by independent market monitors and utility filings confirmed that soaring regional peak demand forecasts, driven heavily by large industrial and data center loads, were a major catalyst behind the clearing prices. For residential customers in utility zones like Baltimore Gas and Electric in Maryland, that single auction spike translated to estimated rate increases of $15 to $25 a month, roughly $180 to $300 a year, on residential electric bills. In parts of Virginia, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, utility commissions have reviewed and approved significant rate adjustments and rider surcharges to fund the substations, backup reserves, and transmission corridors required to balance the grid. And this is the economic reality. The technology sector is projecting unprecedented growth and capital investment in AI. Meanwhile, the short-term cost of clearing capacity auctions and financing long-term physical grid reinforcements is being distributed across the broader rate base, millions of everyday households running standard appliances. When you step back and look at the whole picture, the real story of the AI boom isn't found in Silicon Valley pitch decks or earnings call transcripts. It lives in the physical friction between software ambition and industrial reality. For the last 3 decades, the digital economy operated under the assumption that computing power was essentially weightless. You write code, you spin up cloud instances, and the physical world stays out of the way. But artificial intelligence has a massive physical footprint. It requires land, heavy cooling, and above all, continuous megawatts of electricity. You can inflate stock valuations overnight, you can raise billions in capital in a week. But you cannot code a power plant into existence. The story that gets reported on cable news is about who has the smartest chatbot. The story that is actually unfolding underneath is a battle over who gets access to the grid and who gets stuck holding the invoice when power margins run thin. The reason I made this channel is because I believe the stories that matter most in finance are never the loud ones on social media. They're the ones buried inside government auction reports, regulatory filings, and power grid tariffs that nobody else has the patience to read. I read the filings so you don't have to. If that kind of analysis is worth something to you, hit subscribe and turn notifications on. I'm curious to hear your take. Have you noticed your electric bills or local utility supply charges creeping up over the last year? Drop your experience in the comments below. I'll be reading through them. Because in finance, you don't need to predict the future. You just have to follow the paper trail.